two men discuss a target in a restaurant in Little Italy. The man smoking a cigarette left a photo of the man he wants dead on the ground, along with information on when he'll be in town. The other, dressed in black and wearing circular sunglasses, says he'll handle it. He finishes his milk and exits the restaurant. Mr. Jones walks up to the elevator in a hotel lobby, surrounded by a dozen or so bodyguards. He arrives at the hotel and meets with a woman. Mr. Jones receives a call from one of his men in the lobby a few moments later. The man in black is holding a gun to his head. He shoots him, and the sound of a gunshot alerts Mr. Jones over the phone. He summons his men and orders them to prepare. The men keep their places and begin to wait for the elevator to ascend the building. Jones' men begin unloading on the figure, who appears as the elevator doors open. They realized they were shooting at the corpse of one of their men after the haze of bullets and gun smoke dissipated. Jones' men retreat from the door and make plans to flee. One of his men investigates the elevator but discovers nothing. When he heard the sound of gunshots, he went to the staircase. As he leaned forward on the railings, the man in black abruptly pulls on his tie, tosses him over, and he falls to his death. The entire struggle was witnessed by another of Jones's men via security cameras, and he begins looking for the assassin. Just then, a hatch in the ceiling opens, revealing a noose that will strangle the man to death. Meanwhile, Mr. Jones attempts to flee. With only 3 men remaining, he directs them to search the terrace. They obey his commands, leaving Mr. Jones inside. At the terrace's entrance, a metal door suddenly drops down. Mr. Jones begins to fear for his life, which is heightened when he hears gunshots from the terrace. Mr. Jones goes deeper into the rooms to get more guns and a phone. Mr. Jones, desperate, dials 911 and retreats into a closet. Léon the assassin emerges from the shadows, holding a knife to Mr. Jones' throat. Mr. Jones is forced to hang up the phone despite the fact that a police officer is on the other end of the line. Léon takes out a piece of paper and tells Mr. Jones to call the number written on it. When he does, a man orders him to leave their territory and never return. He reminds Léon to double-check that Jones understands before releasing him. Léon departs, and Jones lives to see another day. Léon stops by the store before heading home and purchases 2 cartons of milk. He notices a 12-year-old girl smoking a cigarette on his way up the stairs. When Léon inquires about the bruise on her cheek, she fabricates an excuse about falling off her bike. 3 men walk out of the girl's apartment door as Léon enters. While the others converse with the girl's father, Stan, the leader of the group, faces the end of the hallway, listening to music. They mention a 10% difference in the batch of drugs, which the girl's father denies knowing about. One of the men claims that Stan dislikes being disturbed while listening to music, but that if he doesn't tell the truth, he will have to disturb him. Nonetheless, the father insists that he did not take it, which causes Stan to be interrupted. The boss looks over, a menacing glare on the father's face. He approaches him strangely, sniffs him, and then lovingly caresses him. Finally, Stan says, "Of course not." He simply requests that he find out who did it by noon tomorrow. The 2 men leave, leaving the father terrified. Léon observes the exchange through a hole in his apartment door. The girl Mathilda passes by Léon in the hallway again the next day. Léon hands her a napkin because her nose was bleeding from the morning attack by her sister. When Mathilda asks Léon if life has always been this difficult, he says yes. When Mathilda goes grocery shopping, she offers to buy Léon milk. Meanwhile, Stan and his men return to Mathilda's apartment with more people and guns. They break down the apartment door and murder Mathilda's family. When Mathilda returns, she discovers her father dead on the floor, alongside one of Stan's men near the door. She tries to remain calm as she walks closer to Léon's door. Léon lets her in after witnessing everything that has occurred. Back in her apartment, one of Stan's men, Mackie, notices their family photo and, upon realizing there are 3 children, orders the men to look for Mathilda. When Stan and his thugs discover the missing drugs, they flee the apartment. Mathilda, who is now in Leon's care, discovers that he is a hitman. She tries to persuade him to kill the murderers of her family, but Leon refuses. Mathilda, on the other hand, suggests that he teach her how to be a hitman. He initially declines, but Mathilda insists that by saving her life, he has made her his responsibility. Leon then moves her to a hotel to keep her safe, and he finally agrees to teach her the basics. Later, Leon and Mathilda go to a building rooftop to practice using the rifle. He explains that beginners should start with the rifle because it is the weapon that will put them the furthest away from the client. Leon demonstrates how to use the gun and gives Mathilda a few pointers to remember. They begin by hitting people in the park with a paint gun. He lets her choose any target, but reminds her that no women or children are allowed. Mathilda focuses her attention on a man wearing a bright tracksuit and fires her shot. It hits the man in the stomach, and the 7 men surrounding him immediately react, covering him with their guns drawn. Leon, who is surprised that Mathilda chose a bigwig by chance, decides that it's enough practice for today. With the passage of time, Leon and Mathilda become accustomed to living together. Leon trains Mathilda on a daily basis while she assists with household chores. Mathilda complains one day that all they do is train, so she dresses up and impersonates a few celebrities, whose identities Leon must guess. As their bond deepens, Leon develops parental feelings toward Mathilda. Later, Leon meets with his friend and employer, Tony, to request the money that Tony has been holding for him. Leon had previously let Tony handle his money without questioning him because he couldn't read. But things have changed, and Leon wants to contribute some of his money to Mathilda's cause. Tony promises to pay him his earnings later, and then tells him about a new job. Back at the hotel, Mathilda confesses to Leon that she thinks she's falling in love with him. Leon dismisses it and goes about his business. Mathilda, meanwhile, decides to go out as well. She enters the lobby and greets the receptionist in a dull manner. When the receptionist misidentifies Leon as her father, Mathilda decides to drop a bombshell on him, revealing that Leon is not her father, but rather her lover. She then abruptly exits the room. Mathilda returns to her childhood home, where her family was murdered. She takes some of her belongings, as well as a large wad of cash hidden beneath the floorboards. Stan, along with a few other police officers, then arrives. Mathilda goes into hiding and listens to Stan fabricate a story about what happened there. She hails a cab to follow Stan to the DEA office, where she learns that Stan is a corrupt cop. Later, in their hotel room, Leon appears and gives Mathilda a gift. He bought her a dress, but Mathilda completely ignores him. Just then, the receptionist and other hotel personnel knock on Leon's door. The hotel receptionist kicks them both out because of what Mathilda told him, forcing them to change their lodgings yet again. Leon is furious with Mathilda right now, but she only takes out her $20 and gives him Stan's name and location. Leon refuses and tries to persuade Mathilda to drop her vendetta, but she refuses, stating that she cannot do so after what they did to her family. Leon introduces Mathilda to Tony at a restaurant and informs him that she is his new business partner. Tony is initially perplexed, but decides to go along with it. He assigns Leon a new task, this time one that he and Mathilda must complete together. Their target is a single man in a solitary apartment. When the two arrive at the man's front door, Leon covers the peeping hole with a piece of gum. He then instructs Mathilda on how to locate the chain before instructing her to persuade the man to come out. Leon cuts the chain and breaks in as soon as the door opens. He inserts the barrel of his gun into the man's mouth and tells him that if it leaves his mouth, he will shoot. While Leon attends to the man, Mathilda notices a large quantity of drugs on a table. Leon directs the man against a window before instructing Mathilda to get her gun and assemble it so she can shoot him with a paintball. As he watches Léon teach the child, the man is terrified and perplexed. Léon then instructs Mathilda to fire 2 shots, the first to disorient the person and the second to kill. As he shoots the man, he tells her to put the gun away. After completing their first task, the two celebrate by going out to dinner. Léon and Mathilda continue to work together on several more jobs, using the same gun trick. In one such case, their client anticipated their ruse and started shooting a machine gun at the front door. Léon, thankfully, reacts just in time to move Mathilda away from the hail of bullets. He then demonstrates the ring trick to Mathilda. Léon pulls a grenade from his pocket and throws it inside, killing the man with the machine gun. The only thing that remained of the grenade was a ring-shaped pin. Léon later tells Tony that because his life is so short, he should give Mathilda his money if anything happens to him. He returns to the apartment to gather his belongings before departing for a job, telling Mathilda that he needs some alone time. Mathilda strikes out on her own and stalks Stan in the DEA office. She sneaks inside and follows him into the bathroom. Mathilda investigates the area, only to discover that she is alone. The bathroom door hastily closes, and Stan emerges from behind it. He intimidates Mathilda while attempting to figure out who she works for, only to discover that she has a vendetta against him. He maliciously tells her that he takes no pleasure in taking the lives of those who do not wish to live. Stan asks her if she wants to live, and when she says yes, Stan prepares to kill her. Before he can say anything, one of his men enters and reports that Mackie has died. Mackie was in the middle of a deal with some Chinese drug dealers when a professional killer burst in and killed everyone. But before he did, the assassin said, "No women, no children." Mathilda immediately recognizes the killer as Léon, who appeared to have changed his mind and decided to rid himself of the people who murdered Mathilda's family. Stan leaves and orders his men to take Mathilda to his office when he hears this. Meanwhile, Léon returns to their hotel room to find Mathilda missing, with a note stating that she had left to kill Stan in the D.E.A office. Léon dashes out the door to pursue her. Mathilda is being guarded at the office by 2 of Stan's men. They search her belongings and discover several firearms, as well as some pizza. Léon bursts in and immediately shoots the 2 guards down. Mathilda has been released, and the 2 have returned to their hotel room. Mathilda tries to seduce Léon while wearing the dress he gave her, but Léon, predictably, does not fall for it. Knowing that telling her she's too young might offend her, he ends up telling her his story instead. He fell in love when he was young, and it was a long time ago. The girl's father tried to keep them apart, but his daughter snuck out anyway to meet with Léon. The father shot his own daughter one night, and was sentenced to 2 days in jail. The father escaped on the 3rd day, and Léon waited for him to kill him. Léon took a boat to the United States after committing the crime to meet with his own father, who was working with Tony. Léon explains that he would not be a good lover for her after completing his story. Finally, Mathilda agrees to let it go on the condition that Léon sleeps on the bed with her instead of on a chair. Léon is alarmed when he wakes up the next day. After all, he's not used to letting his guard down. Mathilda calms him down before leaving for groceries. Before she leaves, Léon inquires about their door code, to which Mathilda responds with 2 knocks, 1 knock, and 2 knocks again. With Mathilda gone, Léon retires to bed and begins to relax and enjoy himself for the first time. Mathilda returns to the hotel after shopping, only to be apprehended by several SWAT team members. They are armed to the teeth and ready to send Léon to his death, so they ask Mathilda if Léon is alone. They then inquire as to whether she has the keys to their front door, and if they have a secret code. Despite the dire situation, Mathilda manages to show them the incorrect code in order to give Léon a warning. When the cops arrive, they break down the door and enter the hotel room. Léon has propped himself up on the ceiling before closing the door, trapping and killing several men without being seen. The SWAT team then sends in another group of men, which Léon successfully ambushes. He dangles from above, shooting down the men in the corridor until Léon is hit on the shoulder. Stan summons the entire force after at least a dozen men are killed. The remaining SWAT members are hiding in the corner, peering over to see if their target is nearby. Léon manages to kidnap one of them and then demands Mathilda's release. When Léon retrieves Mathilda, they return to their hotel room, but not before shooting the water pipe above the ceiling, which obstructs the men's vision. Léon abandons the SWAT hostage at the front door, beneath the cover of the gushing water. When the door closed, SWAT members rained bullets on it, killing one of their own men. Léon and Mathilda take cover from the snipers at the window and enter the bathroom. Léon uses an axe to cut a hole in a ventilator shaft and then pushes Mathilda through it. Mathilda becomes agitated when she realizes Léon will not fit. She sobs because she doesn't want to leave without him, that she doesn't want to lose him. Léon wraps his arms around Mathilda, cupping her cheeks and embracing her. He tells her that he wants to live and promises her that when this is all over, he'll leave with her and it'll just be the two of them. Léon expresses his feelings for Mathilda, and she expresses her feelings for him as well. Mathilda walks down the ventilator, calmer now. Léon screams as he realizes he may never see Mathilda again. The SWAT team fires a missile into Léon's apartment at that precise moment. The SWAT team enters the apartment after the smoke has cleared. Léon appears out of nowhere, dressed in SWAT gear, and raises his hand, pretending to be one of them. The men yell for Léon to help them carry him out of the building. Between the apartment and the building exit, there were over 200 SWAT members. Léon takes a seat for a few moments and allows the medical team to examine him. Léon flees after the medic has gone. Stan notices him leaving and immediately follows. Léon finds an underpass to slip into now that he is outside the building, but Stan shoots him from behind. Léon pulls the ring trick, knowing he won't make it through this. He hands Stan the grenade pin ring and tells him it was given to him by Mathilda. He then opens Léon's vest and discovers a half-dozen grenades. Léon and Stan are both killed in the explosion. Later, Mathilda goes to Tony to take Léon's money. Tony refuses despite his promise, claiming that Mathilda is too young for that amount of money. He also refuses to hire her. Mathilda leaves and returns to her former school, with only a few $1,000s in her pocket. The headmistress speaks with Mathilda and assures her that she will do everything in her power to assist her. Mathilda goes outside to the boarding school's yard and places Léon's favorite plant beneath a large tree. "I think we'll be okay here, Léon," she thinks to herself,